White male lawmakers want you to be as uneducated, barefoot, and pregnant as the black and brown women next to you.
Hi lovelies, welcome back to another TikTok video. If you are new here, my name is Belinda Stranad and here is Belinda's TikTok. Don't forget to please subscribe to this channel, turn on notifications so that anytime I upload a video, you will be the first person to be notified. And to my returning subscribers, thank you so much for all the love and support. To those people that share my videos, leave commentaries, you guys are the real MVP. Thank you so much for all the love and support. Alright lovely, so you guys know that affirmative action was removed, and after which we have what they call a post-affirmative action, where the Asian communities were actually like paced, and this affirmative action of a thing removal was not in the favor of them at all, and this actually got internet talking, and a lot of people have so many things to say about the affirmative action and the post affirmative action. And majority of people say that the affirmative action actually benefited the white women the most, and this actually got me thinking, like, because a lot of people like, how is it that affirmative action actually benefited white people, or white women rather? So I was just able to put up some videos together, like put up some stitches together, where people were like trying to air their opinion on why they think that this actually benefited white women, and they are so shocked that white men are actually clamoring to the removal of affirmative action. And this actually got people talking in their own opinion, and I was just able to put up some stitch as well as other stitches I was able to put in place concerning how people reacted in terms of affirmative action, the post, and why they feel that it's actually benefited white women. And these white women are even like guys, I'm just gonna roll the clip as well as the stitches I was able to put together. Please just leave me in the comment section of what you think of this video, and do not forget that this channel does not support any form of bullying, harassment, or whatsoever. We are just here for educational purposes, guys. Why not please share this video, subscribe if you've not done that already, like, and let's get into it.
How white women have benefited the most from affirmative action is pretty easy to look up, and since this question is coming from a nameless, faceless profile, I'm not sure that it's being asked in good faith. If it's being asked in good faith, I'm about to give the answer. If it's being asked in bad faith, maybe in the future ask yourself whether I'm really the person that you want answering this kind of question. So affirmative action was originally meant to address racial disparities only. It did not include gender. But in the late 1960s, the government correctly recognized that women had faced a great deal of disparity and obstacles and should be included in affirmative action. So keeping in mind that the only demographic that was not previously included in affirmative action that became included with that change is white women. And affirmative action was so effective for white women that by 1980, white women were no longer underrepresented in higher education. And by 1995, there were 6 million women, the vast majority of whom were white, who held jobs that they would not have held were it not for affirmative action. And this is all great. These are wonderful outcomes, and it shows how affirmative action should work for its intended beneficiaries. However, Black students are still underrepresented in higher education, and Black men and women are still underrepresented in the workforce. And although there is still a gender pay gap, white women's average weekly earnings is more than that of Black men or Black women. And white men continue to benefit from affirmative action, particularly in the federal job sector. However, despite the fact that white women have been the greatest beneficiaries of affirmative action, 70% of them oppose affirmative action. So there also goes the idea that white women do not vote against their interests.
So something that I think is really interesting, which please, anybody out there who isn't like an actual legal expert, correct me because I am not a legal expert, but to my understanding, the reason white women benefit from affirmative action more than any other demographic is because affirmative action doesn't just take into account race, it also takes into account gender. And so white women are benefiting on the account of their gender, not their race. Well, the Supreme Court decision didn't say anything about gender-based admissions. It only talks about race-based admissions and says you can't do race-based admissions. So to my understanding, this actually makes it even easier for white women to benefit from affirmative action and bars people of color from benefiting from affirmative action based on their race. And so while affirmative action has primarily benefited white women, it still did benefit people of color. Now it doesn't, but it could still benefit white women, to my understanding.
I see a lot of people talking about the affirmative action ruling, and there's a lot of people pointing out that white women were actually some of the biggest beneficiaries of affirmative action. And so people are kind of naturally asking, like, well, like, why did conservative white women vote for things that would take away, or people who would take away things that are benefiting them? And I think that there's some things to be discussed here that we don't really talk about very often. One of those things is that regardless of party, white women will, the vast majority of the time, vote whiteness over gender, because we can still receive the runoff of the benefits that white men get or give themselves when they're in power. So white families will still benefit, and we might not make the same amount of money that white men make, and we might have our right to choose birth when we want to ripped away, but we will still always be the beneficiaries of white men in power. And so when we look at the way white men have structured our society to treat people who aren't white, we think, well, I don't want that. Like, this isn't great, but it's not that. And so because we don't really talk about that very often, because that requires people to like dig underneath and really like acknowledge privilege to talk about how racist they are. And this applies to liberal women as well. We will continuously see women, even liberal women, voting against their own interests because their primary identifier is white, and the thing that gives them the most privilege in this country is their relationship to white men. And the interesting part about that, even beyond this, is that white men kind of, as a whole, only really care for white women to the extent of what we can do for them. So the whole dynamic is like pretty fucked up, but yeah, just something that I don't think we really talk about very often.
The Supreme Court has ruled that affirmative action is a violation of the 14th Amendment and therefore unconstitutional. The majority opinion was penned by Justice Roberts, and it goes through the judicial history of striking down race-based state actions, starting with Brown versus Board of Education, which declared that the right to a public education must be made available to all on equal terms. And then they discussed ending segregation and busing, bathhouses, public beaches, golf courses, neighborhoods, and then marriage in Loving versus Virginia, because as the court said in this opinion, the 14th Amendment proscribes all invidious racial discriminations. Invidious, meaning unfair, unjust, unpleasant. And then the court said that any race-based decisions must survive strict scrutiny, meaning that the government has a compelling interest, and then the action is narrowly tailored to achieve that interest. In plain language, what the Supreme Court said is that being intentional about achieving diversity in our colleges and universities is offensive. Let me get more concrete than that. A medical school trying to ensure that more black doctors graduate, especially in the wake of high rates of black maternal and infant mortality, high rates of racist healthcare practices. They said that is as bad as not letting black people ride the same buses as white people. The Supreme Court has said that getting more black and brown teachers, lawyers, and psychologists in those fields is as bad as banning interracial marriage. They have compared getting minorities into college at higher rates, but still lower rates than white legacies, to segregation. They have said that the government does not have a compelling enough interest to right decades of wrongs by giving minority students a nudge in the lobby when everybody else is already at the penthouse. As a matter of fact, this opinion stressed that no matter how compelling affirmative action might be, it's dangerous. They used that word, dangerous, to describe ensuring that minorities are educated. The court said that 20 years later, no end of affirmative action is in sight, but rather than acknowledge that as an indication of the long road ahead to undo decades of racial injustice, the court determined that affirmative action is invidious. I'm a black lawyer. Fewer than 5% of lawyers in this country are black. White men are overwhelmingly represented as the people who make the laws that govern your rights, your liberty, your lives. And white women, I want you to pay attention, because you were actually the group most benefited by affirmative action. Last year, they took away your right to bodily autonomy too. You're affected too. And these white male lawmakers want you to be as uneducated, barefoot, and pregnant as the black and brown women next to you. Lack of diversity hurts all of us. And the Supreme Court's decision today will only hurt us more.
The reality is, these white male lawmakers can get away with peeling back affirmative action and every other civil rights advancement that we've made thus far in this country because They know white women believe that the preferential treatment they get in comparison to Black folks is the same as having their human rights protected, and it's simply not the case whatsoever. Like the creator of the previous video mentioned, white women, you had your bodily autonomy stripped from you earlier this too, right? You remember that? That's because you're only useful to white men insofar as you're servicing their emotional, sexual needs and giving them white beat. But outside of that sort of servicing of white men hate you almost as much as they hate Black people. But they also fear you. They fear that one day you'll figure out that your experiences is tied to that of Black folks, and that one day we'll build any type of coalition. Because in that situation, white men might actually have to pay for their war crimes.
White people and affirmative action. Let's talk about it. It is a known fact that white women have benefited the most from affirmative action. Yes, it's true. Go look it up. But of course, anything that seeks to correct the evil, white supremacist, systemic racism that still exists in our country and create equity for Black people is going to be under attack. This is why we can't just leave the past in the past and move on. This is why we can't heal from our past. Because instead of facing it, addressing it, admitting it, acknowledging it, and educating our children about it, and doing everything in your power to correct it, you do this. You go back and you try to undo and reverse the very few laws and policies that were put in place to correct the racial injustices and racial discrimination of the past that is still causing extreme harm and negative outcomes for Black and brown people today. You don't want us to heal. You don't want to make what's wrong right. You don't want to fix these messed up systems. You want to go back in time and reverse any and all progress that we have made as a way to say, hey, I know you thought that we cared about you and that we had changed, but we want you to know that we're here to continue the evil of our ancestors and maintain this false white supremacist racial hierarchy. And we will do everything in our power to oppress you, stop your financial and economic advancement, and prevent people from learning the truth and the facts about our history so that they don't gain any sort of empathy or a desire for equity for Black people every chance we get. But we're not racist, though. And if you call us racist, we'll just say that you're woke and creating division and living in the past, because we are our ancestors' wildest dreams. And as we continue the lies and the hate and the discrimination, the dehumanization, criminalization, oppression, and marginalization of Black people for hundreds of years after it was supposed to be over, we know that we're winning when you lose. White people, if you think that you can sow evil and reap good, you are lying to yourself, and you're in denial. You reap what you sow. So what are you sowing today? If you are not like your ancestors and the racist white people currently in positions of power who are wreaking havoc on our country and our world, like you say you are, show us. Do something. If you don't know what to do or how to do it or what to say or how to say it, you need to invest in anti-racism education today. Stop being a passive part of the problem and start becoming an active part of the solution. Get started today at the link on my profile.
I totally can. So I'm pulling some statistics from this op-ed published in Teen Vogue in 2022 when this case was initially brought up. It is written by Wendy Leo Moore, and it provides an excellent breakdown of the historical trends post-affirmative action. The important thing to remember here is that affirmative action takes everything into consideration, also gender. So let's take a look at who actually was accepted more to colleges and universities after affirmative action was legalized. Now, if you take a look here, it seems that after affirmative action, statistics show that Latinos and Black folks are still underrepresented in university admissions and graduate programs, especially in four-year colleges. But then you'll notice that gender equality in colleges is very, very different. And post-affirmative action, women only made up about 35% of those receiving bachelor's degrees in 1960s. But after affirmative action, women were no longer underrepresented. And today, more women than men are getting that degree. Employment trends the same way as well. Black people, the unemployment rates have consistently remained about double than whites. But if you look at unemployment by gender, men and women are roughly the same. And if you look even further to that and add race to the equation, white women's earnings per week were higher than Black women and Black men. So all of this to say is that it's important to recognize that affirmative action, the concept of taking into consideration things like race, gender, and stuff like that, was meant to promote equity, not equality. Equality is considering everybody the same and being colorblind, whereas equity is to acknowledge that certain factors in our personal lives, like race, like gender, can positively or negatively affect our ability to do well in school and stuff like that. So, yeah, after affirmative action, after colleges and universities were allowed to take things like that into consideration, People like me were the beneficiaries. However, the propaganda machine quickly spun that out of control to really just focus on the race part of it. And so white women and white men unified to say, how dare you treat us differently just because we are white? It's the same with abortion, right? Conservative women are like, fuck abortion, but they're the first ones in line when they
So,
need it.
lovelies, we all know that this whole thing about affirmative action all began last year, where this John Wayne, who happens to be a student, is actually an Asian conservative, who happens to be a student, was all denied admission in all these Ivy schools. He took it upon himself to actually sue schools, and one thing led to the other. Affirmative action was like, okay, should we remove this or we shouldn't remove this? And this actually got a lot of people, talking, and one thing led to the other. Affirmative action was actually removed, and a lot of people were like, why is it that white women is actually, trying to like, oh my goodness, we don't want this to be removed. Meanwhile, affirmative action was actually supporting a white supremacist that actually supports or benefited white women the most. Like, because then they were all out like, okay, we don't want affirmative action to be removed, but all of this is just kind of a propaganda. So I was like, okay. Once led to the other again, affirmative action after being removed, due to the fight between Asian, they're claiming that they're not being admitted because they felt that black people or black students are actually taking their sports, which they see people of color as not being intelligent and not able to get into the schools, while trying to prevent them that happens to be intelligent to get to these schools. So after all of this, affirmative action was actually removed, and prior to the removal of affirmative action, these Asian people that actually thought that black people was the problem or the reason why they're not getting into the schools, they now realize that people of color or black people are actually not the problem. Do you know that they were used to remove affirmative action? So this and a lot of them actually got internet talking, and people were like, okay, when you guys say that black people or white people actually benefited, or white women actually benefited more on affirmative action, and how is it? A lot of questions were asked. A lot of people want to know why people come out and say that, okay, this has nothing to do with that's white people actually or white women actually benefited more. So I now came across most of this video like talking about how white people or white women actually benefited more in affirmative action, and them trying to come out not in support of it makes it look so suspicious. Like, oh my goodness, are they trying to pretend right now that they don't know that they are actually the beneficiary of this affirmative action? So I was able to come up with those videos, and a lot of them have their own opinions. Even some was actually talking about how this white men tried to use this affirmative thing to benefit white women, just in case of their political career. They will actually come out to support them, like they will want to give out, but these women don't know that this man is actually trying to help, like try to use them just the way the other two black writers was actually trying to explain. So they tend to use this scenario because this is just something about the supremacists. They were just trying to look for a way to keep these people captive and keep them in a particular place while they continue with their career, but they can actually benefit little from this, why they push on their career, and anything that happens in the process, they have their own white women to always support them, or because they feel that white women is actually benefited, and white women know that, okay, since we are benefiting a little from this, we should be able to help, or we should be able to advocate for our own. So they wouldn't want to jeopardize that. So these white women they felt and they feel that okay, we are benefiting from this, but without them knowing that they were supposed to, this is something that they were just supposed to, it's just theirs, but the way they are taking it, they are making them look as if, you know, the male is actually giving them all, it's just a favor. They're trying to, like, it's a favor of a kind of a thing, but without them realizing that they are supposed to be in that category. They are supposed to, this is just their benefit that they are qualified to get, but all because of, you know, they're just trying to use them. And these women actually know everything. They know the truth. They know what's up about all of this, but they will actually choose to support race instead of to support something that is of straightforward. So that's why sometimes we don't even blame them. That's why sometimes when we just talk, we just, you know, try to, like, okay, you know, these people are supremacists and they will never, even if they are not happy with where they are, they will choose to be in a situation where they're not even happy or not treated nicely. They will choose to be there instead of them to, you know, they'll choose that because of race thing. So I wouldn't even, you know, blame them. And this actually, like, okay, this is the reason why a lot of people, you know, think that, okay, not a lot of people think that, but actually white women benefit more, you know, in terms of these affirmative actions of a thing, and they are still even benefiting even after the removal of affirmative action. And now, who are now the people that is, you know, that is being left behind? Who are now the people that's been left? The same people that was like, okay, we do not want this, we need this to be removed, so because of this we are not getting employed, because of we are not getting admitted, because of this particular set of people which are actually taking our spurs, we are not getting what we deserve. These are the same people that is being shocked with everything. Like, you guys feels like, okay, we are the same, almost same color or almost same race with this kind of people. I think that we'll be treated better. Let's, you know, team up and knock out or get out this in order to knock out this particular set of race out. But you don't know that you are doing that in your own detriment. You are doing that, but you don't know you are actually bringing yourself down. So when I saw this post affirmative action, you know, videos, which I actually, you know, posted on my own page, which I actually posted on this on my channel, and the outcome, the replies from Asian Americans, like, they are really great. Like, most of them was like, okay, that we thought that black people actually was the problem, that now we are realizing that we actually made a very big mistake. Yeah, because, you know, when this affirmative action was still in there, they often thought that, okay, the level at which the admission or the level at which Asian students or, you know, conservative Asian people are being admitted into, you know, these Ivy schools are not, that the percentage is just too slow, while they are very intelligent, but their percentage is still very, very slow. So they wanted to get rid of affirmative action, thinking that, okay, since this particular set of people have low IQ and are not intelligent or smart enough to, you know, qualify to get into these schools, let's just team up and get these people out from the window so that we can have enough spot to bring in more of our children, more of our students, more of our, you know. And after this whole thing, after this whole scenario, you don't realize that, oh my god, we actually made a very big mistake. We are just used, we are used to fight against people that don't even have anything to do with what's going on. Like, this actually got them thinking, their parents, like, oh my goodness, their percentage have drastically reduced compared to, you know, before, and all of that. And I keep wondering, like, at what end, like, what are they gonna come up with? Like, are they gonna come up with, okay, we do not want the affirmative action to be removed anymore, we want it back, so that we can get more like, I've been trying to, you know, refresh and follow this affirmative action and post affirmative actions and all of that to know the next move, because this actually got internet talking when this article popped up online, you know, how Asian parents were like, oh my goodness, the percentage of the where our student or our children have been admitted into this Ivy school has been dropped drastically after affirmative action have been removed. So where is that feeling who? Guys, why not just leave me your own thoughts in the comment section of what you think of this video. If you believe that white people actually, you know, or white women benefit more, you can leave it in the comment section. If you think otherwise, that this is just, it doesn't have to do with you know, gender thing, it has to do with race, you could just leave it in the comment section. And do not forget that this channel does not support any form of bullying, harassment, or whatsoever. We are just here for, you know, educational and informative purposes, guys, and I will try as much as I can to just be constant and post more on this channel. And if you are coming here for the very first time, please do your girl a huge favor to share this video, you know, subscribe to this channel. I actually have two channels. One is Ballistic and the other one is Belinda Stranded. I'm still working up my Belinda Stranded, which I'll bounce back by next month. Alright, loves, thank you so much for all the love and support. Kindly subscribe to this channel if you've not done that already. Like this video, leave me your own thoughts in the comment section of what you think of this video, and I will see you lovelies when I upload my next video. Happy New Year once again, lovelies. I love you.